the meeting due to a technical problem with the recording.
Oh no.
Well,
Hopefully not me.
Hopefully we won't have much of a meeting without you.
If not, I'll just say, well, that's just what the universe wanted today. Don't have to do my talk.
Oh, I don't think you're going to get off that easy. I think the universe wants to hear your talk. And I'm just going to kind of bow out and turn things over to Dirk at this point, since he's Umze, and then I believe he's probably going to be presenting the materials as well, and then he'll hand it off to you, Elizabeth, and then I'll just be admitting people. I'll be letting everybody in, so anybody that wants to join all the way up to the last minute, I've been directed to let them come on in. Lama Jinpa would like everybody to have access at any time that they can show up. So, and with that, I will let go of the mic and turn it over to you and Dirk.
So when I do start presenting, I'm going to turn my video off just to reduce the amount of bandwidth I'm using on my side.
All right. Well, if you want to get started, Dirk, I'm not sure if I should say anything, but welcome everybody. Thank you for being here.
My apologies, I'm having a little bit of an issue here, but we'll overcome it. Huh. Never had this happen before. It's because you're talking today, Elizabeth. That's why this is happening. It's actually just because there are more people here than usual. That way I can look more like a fool in front of more people. That's good. It might also just be because I have an account that allows me to tell people, let people in or not come in. And so everybody who comes is popping up on me. And every time I start to click on the thing that I need to click on, somebody pops in.
To present the materials, Dirk? I have them up.
There, I got it. It was just, I just needed space from people joining. That's all. That's all it was. So actually, I'm going to give it another minute or two because people are popping on. And I think it's good to give people give a little space because everybody's going to hear people joining otherwise. Okay, well, I guess we'll get started here. Just to reiterate, we are recording this meeting, so if you don't want your presence to be known, you should leave. By attending, you're agreeing to be recorded. You can turn off your video though if you like and still remain, and that way, although your presence will still be recorded, your video won't be. And so we'll begin with opening prayers. And then Elizabeth Wadsworth will be giving us a talk today. Teacher, foe destroyer, thus gone, fully and perfectly awakened Buddha, endowed with knowledge and good conduct, gone to bliss, knower of the world, helmsman of ordinary beings to be tamed, supreme one, teacher of all gods and men, Buddha, foe destroyer, glorious victorious one, Shakyamuni, to you I pay homage, make offerings, and go for refuge. Teacher, foe destroyer, thus gone, fully and perfectly awakened Buddha, endowed with knowledge and good conduct, gone to bliss, knower of the world, helmsman of ordinary beings to be tamed, supreme one, teacher of all gods and men, Buddha, foe destroyer, glorious victorious one, Shakyamuni, to you I pay homage, make offerings, and go for refuge. Teacher, foe destroyer, thus gone, fully and perfectly awakened Buddha, endowed with knowledge and good conduct, gone to bliss, knower of the world, helmsman of ordinary beings to be tamed, supreme one, teacher of all gods and men, Buddha, foe destroyer, glorious victorious one, Shakyamuni, to you I pay homage, make offerings, and go for refuge. When you, chief of humans, were born, you took 7 steps on this great earth, and you said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise at that time, I prostrate. Completely pure body, supremely fine form, ocean of wisdom like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, supreme protector, to you I prostrate. Endowed with the supreme marks, a face like the stainless moon, a color like gold, to you I pay homage. The 3 worlds are not like you, who is free from dust. Matchless one, endowed with knowledge, to you I prostrate. Protector endowed with great compassion, omniscient teacher, field of ocean-like merits and good qualities, to the thus gone I prostrate. Through purity, free from attachment, through virtue, releases from the evil gone realms, unique, supreme, ultimate meaning, to the Dharma that brings peace, I prostrate. From freedom, teaching the path, well abiding in the pure trainings, holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha also, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3, ever devout homage. To all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects, with supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous action, accumulate virtue and goodness, subdue your own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Like a star, a mirage, a lamp, illusions, drops of dew, bubbles, dreams, lightning, and clouds, look at all conditioned phenomena as such. Due to this merit, having attained the state of the all-seeing, and thereby subduing the enemy of faults, may I liberate migrators from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Guru, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the positive potential I create, by listening to the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the joyful happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from holding some close and others distant. Respectfully, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I confess all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the virtuous action of all ordinary and noble beings. Please, Buddha, remain as our guide and turn the wheel of Dharma until samsara ends. May the merit created by myself and others, may the 2 bodhicittas ripen, and may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. This offering I make of a precious jeweled mandala, together with other pure offerings and wealth, and the virtues we have collected throughout the 3 times with our body, speech, and mind. O my masters, my yidams, and the 3 precious jewels, I offer all to you with unwavering faith. Accepting these out of your boundless compassion, please send forth waves of your blessings. Idam Guru Radha Mandala Kam Niryatiyami. Now we'll do the Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, Arya Bhagavati Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on massive Vulture's Mountain, on Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya, Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Sharadvatiputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly, beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, and up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, and up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point, nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwelled in the 3 times also manifestly, completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared: Tayata gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhi soha tayata gate gate paragate parasamgate. Kayata gate gate paragate parasamgate buddhi soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, seminal lineage. It is like that. It is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, Ashuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. And before I turn this over to Elizabeth, I just want to remind people that this session is being recorded, especially for people who just joined, and that by attending this session, you're agreeing to be recorded. And if you don't want to be recorded, you should probably leave, but if you wish to stay and not be seen, you can turn your video off. Thank you. Over to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. It's an honor to be able to talk with you all today. So the title of my talk is about the fifth precept and why it has more to do with other things rather than substances. And so I thought I would start my talk today with a little story that I found relevant. I'm going to be reading the story here. In the 70s, when we wandered up the hill to Kopan Monastery in Nepal in various states of drug and alcohol-induced intoxication, we would ask Lama Yeshe, what do you think about drugs and alcohol and meditation? They make us more relaxed, so it's easier to watch our breath, and our visualizations are so much more vivid when we're stoned. Lama, looking at us with an expression that was quizzically serious, would say, you don't need drugs, dear. You're already hallucinating. And then, when we stopped laughing, he would explain that the intoxicants and meditation don't go together. Intoxicants take you away from reality, and meditation takes you toward reality. Which do you want? You're already intoxicated by ignorance, anger, and attachment, and suffer as a result. Why do you want to take more intoxicants? I know that Lama has also talked about that a little bit, but that was a quote from Venerable Thupten Chodron. So she's been there, she's done that. And yeah, I thought it was pretty relevant to this talk. So as some of you already know, I celebrated 5 years of sobriety last week, yay. And in past talks, I've shared some stories about my path to sobriety. And for those that don't know, I'm sober today with the help of the Mindful Recovery Program at Roar Dharma Center, Lama Jinpa, and my husband, Rob. I'm also sober because of my Dharma practice. And today I thought I would talk about sobriety and what it really means to practice the fifth precept. So for many people, especially ones that don't have an issue with alcohol, the fifth precept is to refrain from intoxicants, and that's a sticking point. In our Sangha, we can't take refuge if we drink. So not to be able to drink that glass of wine at the end of the day or share a cold beer with friends over holiday weekends, such as this one, is something that many people are just not willing to give up in order to take refuge. And by and large, alcohol in our society is also part of our American culture, as many parts of the cultures, as many other cultures throughout the world. So to willingly not partake in a piece of your culture doesn't seem right, does it? The fifth precept is only one of the 5 precepts that is self-directed. The other 4 have to do with others and your conduct towards them. But why can't I have my glass of wine if I'm not hurting anybody? So before I became sober, I remember talking to Lama about my upcoming visit to wine country. And I was visiting a friend from out of town at a winery, and I thought I was able to hold it down, which was rare for me, and have a couple glasses of wine. And I did. And with a little wine buzz, I thought to myself, why would I ever give this up? I mean, look at these vineyards and the beauty all around me. Look at the camaraderie I have with my friends, and we're just drinking wine and it's beautiful. Where is the harm in this? Sobriety just isn't for me. And maybe Lama's not for me, and the Dharma's not for me. And so I stopped seeing Lama. And fast forward to 2 years later, I had made a complete ass of myself at a work function, and I had to leave. I had ruined a family vacation with other families. I had made an ass of myself at a birthday lunch that was thrown by friends, and ruined my relationship with a restaurateur in town who's well known, who I had known for years, over a bottomless mimosa incident. So I was about to lose my friendships, my husband, and my family, all within the span of about 2 months. And I would say that a harmless glass of wine and visions of outings in Napa, laughing with my friends, wasn't exactly my reality. So I just had to come to terms with that. And I had to make a choice. I either get my shit together or begin to lose everything that I love. And a sober friend ended up driving me home from my bottomless mimosa birthday brunch because I had gotten too drunk to drive. And on that ride home, she told me that she would no longer be hanging out with me if I continued to drink. And she told me that although catastrophic things hadn't happened yet, they were going to. And she called them my not yets. She pleaded with me to take action before all I had built for myself was gone. And this also wasn't the first time we had talked about sobriety. I was a stone's throw away from a domino effect that I am convinced probably would have killed me. I don't know that I would have made it through any more loss. I had experienced a lot of loss in my past, and I probably would have either drank myself to death or killed myself. My kids would have not had a mom. And all of a sudden, that fifth precept didn't seem so far-fetched for someone like me. So it's kind of there for a reason. Although my story might be different from others who take refuge, the path that is in front of all of us is pretty much the same. The fifth precept isn't really about substances when it comes down to it. The fifth precept is about becoming what I call a badass bodhisattva. And I'm not talking about someone who dabbles in the Dharma. I'm talking about someone who has the courage to do the things that others won't do, who has the courage to face the things that others won't face, and who has the courage to not run when things get tough, and who will sit with and examine their life over and over. Have any of you ever heard of Brené Brown? She's the vulnerability researcher, the author that talks about shame and courage and daring to be great. She's pretty popular nowadays. Excuse me. She said before in this last year that she credits sobriety for her success. And she recently just celebrated 24 years of sobriety and has really recently started talking about sobriety and the role that it plays in her success. And I was reading an article and she wrote this piece. I was talking with a dear friend who was newly sober, and our conversation shifted something in me. For the first time in my life, I realized that my sobriety isn't a limitation. Sobriety isn't even a have to. It is a superpower. In fact, right after my Netflix special launched, someone asked me about the secret to my success. And the first thing that came to my mind was sobriety. Without sobriety, I wouldn't be living an authentic, honest life, but rather trying to outrun, outsmart, and numb vulnerability. And that has been my experience too. I think Brené hit the nail on the head with vulnerability. I'm only 5 years in, but sobriety is 100% my superpower and the reason that I have most everything good that I have in my life. allowing myself to be vulnerable and to be seen and to be heard has changed everything for me. I come from a family where we were to do as we were told, and the answer was always, because I said so, that's why. And so I developed a healthy codependency and people-pleasing tendency. And that's pretty much the way I was able to deal with life before I discovered that I liked alcohol and drugs. And then it was also codependency, people-pleasing, alcohol and drugs at the same time. So undoing this for me has taken 5 years thus far, and I have a long way to go. But being vulnerable is really hard. I announced this past week that I am switching jobs after 6.5 years. And I can say without a doubt that my sobriety has impacted my ability to make this shift and a career change in the middle of a pandemic. And I decided back in January that I had to do this for real. And it was the time to do it. And Lama had already said, you're on the diving board and you got to jump. And I wouldn't have loved myself enough in the past to be able to pull something like this off. I'm making the shift because I love myself. And that comes from sitting with the uncomfortableness that comes from not checking out and facing things head on and examining. But it took me a while to examine it all. And in all honesty, I've done much harder things in sobriety, but I will say that a second round interview is no cakewalk. It's not fun. I was on a Zoom call on Friday with a women's group, and after hearing about my recent job change, one of the participants said that she admired my courage to make the shift right now when so many things are uncertain. And it didn't really occur to me until after I'd been offered the new position that it was an uncertain time, and making a job change was, scary. And I kind of think that I view it as our whole life is uncertain. And because of my practice, and the fear and the uncertainty didn't really stop me from making the change in the middle. And what was certain to me in this whole thing was the truth of the matter. And that was the fact that my prior position had run its course and it was time to go. And I allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to have conversations to get answers that I probably didn't want to hear. And I needed more, and I knew it, and they knew it. And so I made the change once and for all. I made the choice in January. And little by little, I worked my way toward doing what was necessary in order to change my career path and get into an industry that I'm passionate about. I got a certification in the position that I wanted to be in. And that certification is one of the main reasons that I got my new job. But if I hadn't examined the situation and opened myself up and started making a plan to get out, I'd probably still be there. I also didn't get this job on my first try. I had about 5 interviews and 2 second round interviews, and I almost had a job in the bag. And at the last minute, a candidate with significantly more experience came in and had a last minute interview, and suddenly I was out of the running. And that really sucked. But I persisted in the middle of this really difficult situation. And trust me, I didn't feel like doing it right now. I even talked to Lama about it. And I said, should I really even be doing this? And he said, you got to just keep on. You have to just keep moving forward. And this pandemic is not a reason to stay where you're at, because you know what you need. And I am gratefully, I accepted a position last week. So I hope that I will love what I'm going to be doing. But I just realized, earlier this year, and I've had this realization a few times, but our life is really too precious to remain stagnant. And sobriety helped me see that. I think sometimes when you're ruminating and reliving things and hashing things over and over, when you're in this drunken state, you're not really moving forward. So I think that that's really a key to why I was able to do this. And I think I have lost track about how many times I've heard the term quarantini, or heard jokes about mass consumption of alcohol and using alcohol to check out right now instead of dealing with feelings. And I can tell you that I don't even want to think about what life would have been right now had I not been sober. I'm pretty sure that wine 30 would have been the way I handled things. And I know that I certainly wouldn't have been job searching because I already had a job that was paying the bills. So why even bother, right? One of the reasons it's recommended that we don't take intoxicants is probably one of the most obvious. We can't achieve the radiant, pure clarity that comes from true mindfulness. And I know that for me, there's a distinct difference between the way that I can now control my reaction to various circumstances. One of the main things that I've noticed is that I now have the ability to put a gap between situations and my reaction to situations. I've become much less reactive. So instead of getting angry or offended or upset by whatever's going on and reacting immediately, I can take the sting out of situations and take a breath and sort of do like a micro analysis in the moment. And 9 times out of 10, what's really happening with someone or some other situation has nothing really to do with me. And I can recognize that quickly now and respond with composure most of the time. I'm not perfect by any means. I still get mad when someone cuts me off while I'm driving. But instead of letting that anger linger and retaliating, I consider what might have been going on with the other person and recognize that it probably wasn't intentional. And having that ability to me is a superpower. Even though it's something that's really small, it's a kind of a big deal to be able to do that and not let those little things bother you. I'm also much less attached to situations and people that are harmful. It helps to have this kind of clarity in situations, especially when boundaries are concerned. You can have love and care for someone else and recognize that something that they're doing isn't about you, but also you have the ability to not subject yourself to it either. And that was something that in the past that I would let happen way more than it should, or let a situation bother me way longer than it should have, because I never dealt with it, because I would just rather numb the pain and check out and not worry about anything that was bothering me in my life and just kind of stuff it and just deal with the situation instead of confronting it. But now I'm happy to say that if something's bothering me, I have to deal with it, right? Because I'm not checking out. And I do that by establishing boundaries and having hard conversations and knowing myself and my needs and not putting myself in situations that aren't good for me. I also have lots of darshan with Lama. Lama is really helpful to me. He always hears about all of it. So one of the other things that I've recognized in sobriety is that I am not the authority on suffering. And suffering is not a reason to give up myself an excuse to blow up my life. I had every excuse in the book for why I would take a substance and drink. I'm stressed, I'm upset, I had a bad day at work, someone died, and the list went on and on. And from what I've realized is that there's absolutely no end to the list. There is no substance that I can take or drink that I can drink that will make that list shorter. There's always going to be suffering in this life, and nobody escapes it, no matter how much we try to tell ourselves that someone is better off than we are. Everybody suffers, and that's part of having a human life. And everybody wants to be happy. And in some way, someone is always suffering, and even though we may not see it, they always want to be more happy. So we're kind of all in this together. And I love to throw a pity party for myself, or tell myself that because I had experienced so much loss in my past, that I was suffering more than other people, and that drinking my way out of it was acceptable because it sucked. But that's just not true. It's awful to have to deal with all of that death, absolutely. Is it okay to grieve? Of course it's okay to grieve. But am I unique? No. Coming to terms with that was a big one for me, because I'd had so much loss. I used it as an excuse for not moving forward. The realization for me then was actually dealing with the suffering, and that's where the freedom was for me. And I was trying to find that freedom in substances, and not really even stopping there, but replacing destructive habits with constructive ones has also been really key, such as like helping other people and giving when I can and putting more love into the world, and having compassion for other people, and recognizing that every challenge is now an opportunity to practice. And I know Lama talks about that a lot. Even the people you can't stand give you ample opportunity to understand life from their point of view and to develop empathy. And when you develop empathy and compassion on a regular basis, suddenly you suffer a lot less because your heart is open to understanding. Having said that, I also can't leave out one of the most important things that substances detract from, which is love and compassion. And I distinctly remember after I became sober, the very first time that I actually felt the love from my children. And I had been numbing out the real deep love. And I thought that my drunk love and feelings and tears of joy while I was drunk were the real love coming through. And I would tell myself, oh, the only time I can feel this love from my kids or have that deep love is when I'm drunk or intoxicated. But the moment that I experienced authentic love in return from my kids with clarity, it changed my life. And I will never forget that realization. And that's one of the things that kept me going in early sobriety. I couldn't believe that I was depriving myself of feeling that from my kids. And I didn't even know what I was missing, but it was big. Also, compassion can come in many forms, like having difficult conversations. And I've had more difficult conversations in the past 5 years than I've had in my entire life. And sometimes being compassionate is saying the things that no one else will say because you love someone and because you care deeply for them. When your true motivation is to help somebody, you can approach situations without anger and from a place of truth. And again, there is vulnerability by sharing your true feelings and being seen, and the risk of not being liked. And that was a big one for me. It kept me from having a lot of really important conversations in my life because I didn't want anybody to be mad at me. I didn't want anybody to not like me. But I'd let people walk all over me on a regular basis, and like my feelings didn't matter. And that doesn't really happen anymore for me. I think about my friend who had that really tough conversation with me in the car that day. And I am sure she did not want to have that conversation with me, but I'm really glad that she did. and she wasn't mad at me or anything, but she spoke her truth in order to help. And I think that for me, that is one of the most compassionate things that you can do for somebody else, is to speak the truth. And it is really difficult. It's not to say that your job is going to be to go around and fix everyone else's problems or tell everybody every little thing that you do or that you're feeling all the time. But honesty and compassion in difficult situations are some of the most precious gifts you can give. So vulnerability is really hard, but it's always worth it. And it also allows for the truth to present itself. And the truth is what gives you answers to your questions. And I know that nobody enjoys tough conversations, but the reward of having them is freedom and happiness. So that is pretty much what I have learned in the past 5 years. But I thought I would close today with a couple of exercises on compassion. So I thought this first exercise in particular was really good, given the fact that we're still struggling a little bit with our grocery shopping experiences right now. So the next time that you're in line at the store, instead of looking down or looking at how quickly the other lines are moving along, and I'm super guilty of this, take a moment to consider the common humanity of the people who made your grocery trip possible. So the people who grew the food, or the people who picked or prepared the food, the people who transported the food, the people who stocked the shelves, and the cashier who is about to help you. And take a moment to appreciate each person individually. This will also help you acknowledge our interdependence. Even a trip to the grocery store is a great example of how this one little thing is supported by countless other people. So I challenge you to do that the next time that you're, receiving a service from somebody or goods from somebody. Just think about that a little bit. But let's not leave ourselves out of our compassion. So the second exercise, I would like for you to think about a time when a friend was really struggling in some way. How did you respond to your friend? And note the tone at which you responded to your friend. I'll give you a second to think about that. And now think about the times that you feel bad about yourself or are struggling with something. How do you respond to yourself in these situations? Note the tone at which you respond to yourself. Did you notice a difference? And why? What factors come into play that lead you to treat others so differently than you treat yourself? And it's an opportunity to think about things that might change if you responded to yourself in the same way that you respond to your friend. What can you say or do differently to yourself that would be more compassionate and kinder to yourself? I challenge you to check in and do that on a regular basis. It'll be helpful. So with that, as you can see, there's some pretty heavy realizations that come from the clarity and inability to run from problems with substances. And I think they're very, very significant. And even though, the substances may be a sticking point for some people, it's really not about the substances. And the more that you recognize what's underneath the why, I think the easier it will be to stick to that and understand what those substances are taking away from your lived experience. So with that, is there any questions? Does anybody have any comments? Thank you for all of the congratulations on my 5 years of sobriety. I really appreciate that. It means the world to me in this Sangha. I'm grateful for you, all of you. You've been amazing and an amazing support for me. And I appreciate you all so much more than you even know. So thank you. With that, I'm not sure if anybody wants to talk or has a question, but I'm open.
Elizabeth?
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Del.
Okay. Hi, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. I have a lot of years of sobriety too, and a friend called me on my drinking when she quit drinking, and it took me a while to look at it. But one of the things I remembered, I mean, I woke up one morning and I was so exhausted, and I remembered interviewing an athlete who said he quit drinking because it drained his energy, especially in the morning. And he just didn't want to do that to himself because he was an athlete. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll try this. And I did. And here I am now. I mean, it's a long journey and, you still have a lot of problems, but I think it gives us a chance to not always act better than we should, because we still have to deal with all of our emotions and our issues, but at least it gives us a chance to see them, and particularly when we're meditating, to look back and think, okay, I might have done that better, I could have done that better, and just to hopefully become more compassionate in the process of seeing things as they are, or as close to they are as we're able to, and recognizing our suffering, as you also said, and from that, learning how to see others suffering and then becoming compassionate. Hopefully bodhisattva's in the process. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And I could not agree more. I think back to all the times that I would be in a situation like when I was drinking, and like I would just make up all of these stories about what was happening to me, or something that somebody did, and the way I interpreted something was completely off. And when you're intoxicated like that, you just think that that's reality. You really believe that, but it's not. And I think that constant introspection is a big deal, because it's something that you continue to work on, and you'll work on for the rest of your days here, and all of your lives. So yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Del.
I like that story too about the hallucination.
Yeah. Right?
Because it is all a hallucination, even if it's really hard to see it at times. If we, step back, see it for what it is. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Elizabeth. You reminded me, I'll turn on my video since I'm talking. You reminded me of a story that might help people who don't have a problem with alcohol see how that precept is useful. You sort of talked about it anyway, but there's a story about a monk, and I think that it doesn't have to be a monk. It could not only could it be a nun, but it could be a man or a woman who is in a committed relationship or anything like that. But this monk is in retreat, and he's sitting there, and this woman comes walking up, and she's leading a goat, and she's got a bottle of wine. She says, "What's going on?" And he says, "Well, I'm on retreat." And she says, "Hey, why don't we drink this wine and eat the goat and have sex and have a good time?" And he says, "Well, I've taken these precepts, not to drink and not to kill and not to have and not to have inappropriate sex. So I have to say no to your proposition. But I would like to, but I'm not. But I can't." She says, "Okay, I can understand that, but there's not a problem with just drinking a little wine. Is there?" And he says, yeah, I never really understood why that precept was so important. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, let's have some wine. And the next thing he knows, of course, he's eating the goat, and they're in bed together. So that's a reason for not for following that precept, even if you aren't have a problem with alcohol.
Exactly. And that's something that, you know, I think that if you look at the other precepts, I mean, absolutely, that one will lead to the others. And I know that I've been listening to a couple of talks from Thupten Chodron about that in particularly, and she had mentioned that think about all of the things in life that happens, and killing and stealing and abuse and all of that. Most times, actually, people are either intoxicated on drugs, you know, wasted. That it's just they go hand in hand. And so, you know, you think about what people would do in their sober mind, and think about what they do in their intoxicated mind, and they're two totally different things. So thanks for sharing, Dirk. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, well, I think that we're maybe good, Dirk. So
Yeah.
Could you tell us where?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask Elizabeth, thank you for your honesty and your clarity and everything, but I wanted to ask you if you could give us a reference for that Thupten Chodron quotation.
Oh, the quotation?
About her encounter with Lama Yeshe.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I found that in a Tricycle magazine article when I was doing a little bit of research and just kind of formulating my thoughts about sobriety and about intoxication. And I just kind of wanted to see some different perspectives. And I came across that article. Yeah, it was a Tricycle article. So I'm happy to send it out. Send a link out.
Thank you.
Yep.
I also had a question too. And then I think there was a comment that Morris made that he may want to elaborate on as well.
Okay.
But my question is, you know, we're talking mostly about intoxication and the effects of it, but there came up a lot of secondary effects that, like, if we are intoxicated, we're kind of maybe not seeing things as clearly or experiencing things as deeply. And you brought up a lot of words that I think are really important, like vulnerability, openness, risk, love, and compassion and patience. And I was wondering if you could just talk about, outside of the alcohol, just what your journey has been like, really keying into those things and how it feels, the felt sense of that, right? You talked a little bit about like how you saw your children differently and you were actually able to feel the love, but maybe you could like talk a little bit about love versus fear and what that's like when you are in this state and more open to being vulnerable, if it's not too personal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you're wanting me to speak to the love side of things more, and compassion and open? Is that what your question was? Just want to make sure I understand that.
Yeah, it was kind of rambling, so that's a good
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, you know, in any circumstance, being vulnerable is terrifying. I mean, nobody wants to be vulnerable. And when you open yourself up to that, open yourself up to another person or to a circumstance or to the possibility of other things, you'll often, I think, surprise yourself. And surprising things happen. I know that for me, you know, when I would open myself up to having a really difficult conversation with somebody, the result of that is actually being closer to that person in a very different level, because you have exposed yourself. You know, you're there's nowhere to hide. And I think that having that depth is something that, for me, and especially in my personal relationships, it's a requirement. I have realized that I, in the past, probably surrounded myself with more people than I probably should have, that I didn't really have that deep connection with, that I thought was a deep connection, but it was actually drinking and drugs. And really, you know, when you peel back all of those layers, that connection with a person at that level is just completely different. You just have a completely different connection, and I think that for me has been so rewarding, and just having that love and being able to feel that from somebody else is important. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, but that's been my experience with it, at least.
Absolutely. Thank you for talking about that, and thank you for the reference for Brene Brown and the work that she's done with daring women too. It's really powerful stuff, I think.
Oh yeah, if anybody hasn't seen her TED Talk on that, she has it, and it's on YouTube if you want to check it out. She also has a Netflix special that's really awesome too. She does a lot of talking about being vulnerable and having hard conversations, and about how that can be transformative. So I highly recommend her work.
And then there was also a comment by Morris too, and I don't know if he has anything else to add, but he says, I appreciate Elizabeth's comments about uncertainty in life and the courage to move forward. It's inspiring. And then, of course, you've got lots of congratulations. I think people really are inspired by your story and the path that you're walking and the authenticity that you're doing it.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you're here, Morris, if you want to elaborate on that more, but absolutely. I really, Morris had said, oh, let me see here, sorry. He said, I appreciate Elizabeth's comments about uncertainty in life and the courage to move forward. It's inspiring. And yeah, I think, you know, especially in this pandemic, you know, we think about, you know, what's the future like? And none of us know, and really, you have to just get comfortable with that. And I feel like my practice has given me the opportunity to do that, perhaps more than others who aren't practicing. Not saying I'm better. I just feel like my practice has given me an opportunity to really accept the uncertainty. Of course, I get scared. I have my moments where I'm totally freaking out, but I also can kind of bounce back from those and find ways of reminding myself that this is temporary and we're going to get through this. It will have an end, and, you know, it'll be okay. And that's really, I think that really comes from my practice. I really don't know how I would have reacted to this situation had I not been sober. Probably wouldn't have been very good. So yeah, it's been really helpful.
Hi, may I comment?
Yes, hi, Morris.
Anyway, I really appreciate your comment. I've just completed 6 years of sobriety myself.
Congratulations.
Which I don't talk about a lot, but makes a big difference in my practice and my marriage and everything else in life. As for uncertainty, there was a big headline in today's New York Times where that says, in essence, we should stop asking pundits to comment about what's going to happen because no one knows what's going to happen.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I said, like, you know, but and this is one thing that I think is actually the secret gift of the pandemic, or the silver lining on the cloud, so to speak, is that we always lived in an uncertain world, but we didn't like to acknowledge it because we have so many structures and expectations, and I'm going to vacation in Hawaii, and I'm going to fly to Europe, and I'm going to do this business deal, and actually we don't. That certainty we don't really have, and the actual uncertainty of life is really much closer to reality, and people don't feel comfortable with that, which is understandable, but it is reality. And on one hand, it's intimidating or fills me with fear. On the other hand, it's sort of liberating also. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It gives a sense to move forward like, well, if I have nothing, if I can do nothing else, at least I can, how do you say it? I feel the freedom to move forward through uncertainty because, gosh, I don't know how the word, I can't find the words. Perhaps.
Yeah, you know, for me, it's just being present in the present moment, and
yes,
really fully present in the present moment. I think that for me, you know, with this situation, I think about, you know, what's going on with my kids, and this is a tremendous gift for me. I mean, I think about, you know, what my life is like before this all happened, and I didn't see my kids a whole lot. We would see each other in the morning, and usually that is not a fun time for parents and kids together, because you're usually kind of rushing off, getting everybody out of the house, making sure everybody's eaten, brush your hair, get your shoes on, you know, and that is the pace of our mornings. And then I wouldn't see the kids again until, you know, like 5:30 when I would get home. And that is a significant portion of my day that you know, my kids weren't in. And now I have this tremendous gift of actually getting to know my kids on a different level. And if I chose to focus on the struggle of distance learning, because that is a struggle, it sucks. Like, I'm not even going to lie. Like, the whole thing has been really difficult for parents, most parents. But I've chosen to focus on the gift that I've gotten from this situation. And that is definitely being present with my children. You know, just noting their little tics and, you know, their quirks and their personalities. And that just comes from, you know, just being here every day, and every day is different. And it's been fun. I know that's kind of strange to say, but it's been a fun experience for me. So.
Well, thank you for your talk. I got a lot out of this, and look forward to speaking to you more about the same things.
Thank you so much, Morris. Thank you. And congratulations to you.
I just wanted to say, this is Dell. I just wanted to say that impermanence for me has been one of the keys and one of the reasons why I am so grateful for having become a Buddhist, because it's one of the Buddhist first teachings. And it's one of the hardest, I think, to, you know, that and emptiness, no self, and karma. It's kind of like, okay. But, you know, impermanence, yes. And we are really seeing it so clearly. And all of these other people who unfortunately don't, you know, have the kind of teachings that we do to fall back on, I think are struggling with it a lot more, because we kind of understand that this is the basis of reality. Whereas a lot of people think that, you know, a lot of people think that, you know, things are going to go back to the way they were, and it's possible that they won't. You know, not in the way that, well, we kind of know that anyway. So thank you so much, Morris, and thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate all of your comments.
Well,
Wonderful things you're saying.
Thank you so much, Del, and congratulations to you as well. And I couldn't agree more with you. I think our practice and, you know, the philosophies and the way we approach life and the teachings that we've had have really prepared us well for this situation. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Elizabeth. I was wondering if I could make a comment.
Hi, Jules. Yes, please.
First things first, I want to say congratulations on your sobriety. I'm very proud of you to have you as a Sangha sister, and I'm sure everyone else here is. It's really remarkable. I wanted to comment on my relationship with the fifth precept, and that is that I was kind of foolish in the sense where I didn't really think it applied to me, because I was only really a social drinker. I would have maybe 1 or 2 drinks out with friends, and I was a college student, and, you know, being in law school, it's just really, it's very prevalent in our culture to have a drink when we're done with finals and stuff like that. So I talked to Lama about it, and I was like, you know, I don't really have a problem with alcohol. What's wrong with having a beer with my friends after a final? What's wrong with that? And he encouraged me to examine what I'm actually taking refuge in. Am I taking refuge in the glass of alcohol that I'm drinking with friends, or am I taking refuge with the blissful wisdom of enjoying the company of my friends? So I want to say this to people who are also a little bit foolish and maybe think that, you know, having 1 or 2 drinks, there's no harm in that. And maybe, you know, there isn't that much harm, but the benefit of taking it one step further and learning to take joy in just allowing your friends to partake in the alcohol and being around positive people, but you yourself can refrain and can just be happy to be around your friends, and that's okay. So I encourage anyone who thinks that maybe 1 or 2 drinks is not harmful if you have it on a social occasion, but the benefits of refraining is so much more beneficial, so much better. So thank you so much for your talk, and you saying about the authentic love that you felt for your kids, it really resonated with me. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Jules. And I could not agree more with you. You know, being around other people who are drinking, it's such an interesting experience. I mean, even 1 or 2, like even when you're, you know, you're not necessarily drunk, but you just have that little edge that's been taken off. It completely, I mean, I don't think, you know, people think that maybe it doesn't really change them a lot. But if you've been around people who've had 1 or 2 drinks and you're not drinking, it is, you see it right away. I mean, at least for me, it is pretty immediately. And it's totally okay. I mean, it's totally fine. But then, you know, the authenticity piece of it and that connection that you're getting with an authentic person, it's just different. It's just different. And it's not necessarily that they're wrong. It's just that it's just a different connection, and you can just approach see things completely differently. Yeah.
And I remember feeling really intimidated by the fact that I wasn't going to be drinking with friends anymore and not enjoying that glass of wine with my girls. Right. But, you know, the friends that I did have, you know, I lost some friends because I didn't have the commonality with them, and they stopped inviting me to have wine and go out and stuff. Yep. But the other friends who did keep inviting me and, you know, actually asked me why I choose not to drink, I told them exactly what Lama said. And I told them, I want to take refuge in being in your company. And they actually thought it was really cool. And, you know, they're my friends to this day because of that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, like Rob and I are probably the only sober friend. Like, we have a couple of sober friends. I don't want to say we're not the only ones, but there's a lot of people who aren't. And there is a significant number of people that fell off when we decided that we weren't going to drink anymore or party or use drugs anymore. And that is really telling. I mean, if you think about the quality of the friendships that you have with the people that are still remaining, those are worth more than any acquaintance or any shallow relationship that you have with someone. I mean, those are worth more, way more. And, you know, socially, you don't really, you know, yeah, you might be missing out on whatever, but, you know, I don't know. I feel like I'm not really missing out at all. I feel like my life is so much more full, way more.
And you may be pleasantly surprised by those friends who think it's actually really cool and, you know, start inviting you and start trying to do activities that don't involve drinking. Right. It's really nice. Yeah.
Exactly. And perhaps maybe you're opening up the possibility that there's other things to do in your adult life than have a drink with somebody. So, you know, that there's actually, it reminds me a little bit, this experience back to like what I enjoyed as a kid and in times before I would drink, because I really, even when I turned 21, I would say I didn't really have a problem with alcohol. It really came a little bit later for me. And I think that, you know, I think about all the things that I really enjoyed growing up. And it's funny how those same things, you know, in some fashion make me happy. And the things that made me extremely happy when I was intoxicated no longer make me happy. And I just think that that's funny that I'm not willing to be in those situations anymore. It's just an interesting observation. So I think, you know, perhaps bringing people back to things they once enjoyed before alcohol is really a gift. And people have said that too.
Very true. Very true.
So thank you, Jules.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
So let me see. Thank you all for your comments. You guys are awesome. Anything else? Anybody else have any comments, or should we do our closing prayers?
I just wanted to hop on real quickly, Liz, and say that I'm so proud of you and I love you so much. And watching you these last 5 years has been incredible. I'm gonna cry now.
Don't make me cry. This is my niece,
and-
everybody.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Watching you grow and change your entire life, and watching you and Rob just completely transform, and how you've helped me, and all of the love and support and ass kicking when I need it that you've given me my whole life. I am so thankful and grateful to have you, and I love you so much.
Thank you, Amber. That means the world to me, and I love you. I really, really do. Thank you.
Of course.
Anyone? You good?
Well, I guess we should move on to closing prayers, eh?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and everybody else.
Thank you all.
So where are we left off here? Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, that has not arisen, arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the teachings of the Buddha flourish, and may the upholders of the teachings remain forever. May all migrators achieve happiness, and may they fulfill all their temporary and ultimate goals. Losang, magical display of the deep awareness of all the victorious ones, merciful giver of a stream of profound and vast instructions to the fortunate migrators, please remain always unperishing, unchanging, unfading. Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of objectless compassion. Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom. Vajrapani, destroyer of the entire host of Maras. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the snowy land sages. Losang Gyatso, I make request at your holy feet. And now for the verses that saved Sakya from sickness, a prayer for pacifying the fear of disease by Tang Tong Gyalpo. May all the diseases that disturb the minds of sentient beings and which result from karma and temporary conditions, such as the harms of spirits, illness, and the elements, never occur throughout the realms of this world. May whatever sufferings arise due to life-threatening diseases, which, like a butcher leading an animal to slaughter, separate the body from the mind in a mere instant, never occur throughout the realms of this world. May all embodied beings remain unharmed by acute, chronic, and infectious diseases, the mere names of which can inspire the same terror as would be felt in the jaws of Yama, Lord of Death. May the 80,000 classes of harmful obstructors, the 360 evil spirits that harm without warning, the 424 types of disease, and so forth, never cause harm to any embodied being. May whatever sufferings arise due to disturbances in the four elements, depriving the body and mind of every pleasure, be totally pacified, and may the body and mind have radiance and power, and be endowed with long life, good health, and well-being. By the compassion of the gurus and the three jewels, by the power of the dakinis, dharma protectors and guardians, and by the strength of the infallibility of karma and its results, May these many dedications and prayers be fulfilled as soon as they are made. Well, Mahung, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dirk. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate you all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. That was a great talk.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.